You have completed the necessary work. You have engaged with the literature, confronted your inner self, and removed the facades. You believed that embracing authenticity would liberate you. You anticipated that others would finally recognize you, honor you, and love the true you. However, an unexpected outcome has occurred instead. The atmosphere transforms upon your entrance now. Discussions alter, grins become more restrained, gazes avert. You sense it, that unseen barrier that previously did not exist, that subtle rejection that remains unnamed. You convince yourself that you are merely imagining it. You must be. After all, you are finally being genuine. Is that not what everyone claims to desire? Authenticity, honesty, and sincere connection. Yet, here is what no one cautioned you about. When you cease to perform, you compel others to confront their own performances. When you discard your mask, you become a reflection, and most individuals despise what they observe. They do not detest you, they detest what you reveal. You once embodied safety and predictability. You executed your role flawlessly. The friend who never disturbed the status quo, the colleague who maintained a smile through the gaffe, the family member who preserved harmony. You were a supporting character in the narratives of others, never challenging their stories with uncomfortable truths. But now you are awakened. Now you express yourself when others would remain silent. Now you assert your boundaries when you truly mean no. Now you acknowledge emotions that others choose to ignore. And with each authentic expression, you are dismantling the intricate structure of pretense that sustains their reality. They experience it viscerally. Your presence now carries significance. Your words resonate differently. Your silence conveys profound meaning. You have become unpredictable, uncontrollable, and unmanageable. You have become real, and reality is the one aspect that most individuals strive to evade throughout their lives. Consequently, they evade you instead. They will never articulate it openly. They will smile, propose plans they do not intend to fulfill, gradually withdrawing from your life, while asserting that nothing has altered. But you are aware. You can perceive the shift, the cooling, the deliberate distance they now uphold. This is the price of waking up in a world that's still asleep. This is what happens when you stop being who others need you to be and start being who you are. The question is, are you prepared for what comes next? Because it gets worse before it gets better, and understanding why might be the only thing that keeps you from putting the mask back on. Picture this. You're at dinner with friends. The conversation flows in its usual patterns, complaints disguised as humor, gossip wrapped in concern, dreams diluted into someday fantasies. But you've changed. You don't laugh at the jokes that aren't funny anymore. You don't nod along to the gossip. When someone asks how you are, you tell them, actually tell them, not the rehearsed fine, but the truth. The table goes quiet, not because what you said was inappropriate, but because you just broke the unspoken agreement, the one that says, we all pretend together, we all perform together, we all stay safely on the surface together. Your authenticity didn't insult them, it exposed them. Carl Jung understood this. He said everything that irritates us about others can lead us to an understanding of ourselves, but most people don't want that understanding. They want comfort. They want the familiar dance of mutual deception. When you stop dancing, you become dangerous. Not because you're trying to hurt anyone, but because your very existence asks a question they don't want to answer. Why are you still pretending? Think about a room full of people wearing masks. Everyone knows they're wearing masks. Everyone agrees to pretend the masks are faces. It's comfortable, safe, predictable. Then you walk in with your actual face showing. Suddenly, everyone becomes acutely aware of the weight of their own masks, the itching, the suffocation, the lie they're living. And they have two choices: take their masks off too, or make you the problem. Guess which one's easier? They'll start with subtle dismissals. You're being too serious. Can't you just have fun anymore? Why do you have to make everything so deep? These aren't observations. They're defense mechanisms, attempts to shame you back into superficiality. When that doesn't work, they'll escalate. They'll mock your growth, roll their eyes at your insights, make jokes about your journey or your phase. They'll try to recruit others, creating a consensus that you're the one who's lost, not found. But watch their eyes when they do it. Behind the mockery is something else: fear, envy, a flicker of recognition that you found something they're still searching for. See, everyone knows on some level that they're performing. Everyone feels the exhaustion of maintaining their facade. Everyone has moments at 3 a.m. when the mask slips and they glimpse their real face in the darkness. But most people have built their entire lives on the performance. Their relationships depend on it. Their identity is woven through it. Their sense of safety requires it. You're not just showing them another way to be, you're showing them that everything they've built might be built on sand. Is it any wonder they react like you're a threat? Because to them you are. Your authenticity is a walking advertisement for a life they're too terrified to live. Your freedom highlights their imprisonment. Your truth illuminates their lies, and rather than face the pain of their own awakening, they'll try to convince you and themselves that you're the one who's lost. Here's where it gets really twisted. They can't attack you for being authentic. That would require admitting they're not. So instead, they attack you for what your authenticity represents. In their mind, you've changed. Translation: you're not playing the game anymore. You think you're better than everyone. Translation: your growth highlights my stagnation. You're so intense lately. Translation: your depth reveals my shallowness. You take everything so seriously. Translation: your reality threatens my denial. You used to be more fun. Translation: you used to help me avoid myself. This is projection in its purest form. They're not seeing you anymore. They're seeing everything they've rejected in themselves. Everything they're too afraid to face. Everything they've buried under years of social conditioning. You've become a walking reminder of their own abandoned authenticity. And here's the brutal part. The more authentic you become, the more distorted the projection gets. Because the greater the gap between who you are and who they're pretending to be, the more threatened they feel. It's like being a sober person at a party, full of drunks. Your very presence makes them uncomfortably aware of their intoxication. Your clarity becomes an accusation. Your peace becomes a judgment. Your truth becomes an attack. But you're not doing anything to them. You're simply being, and that's what they can't forgive. Watch how they'll create stories about you. You're going through something. You're lost. You're trying to find yourself. Anything to avoid acknowledging that maybe you've already found yourself, and they're the ones who are lost. They'll diagnose you with problems you don't have, accuse you of feelings you're not feeling, assign you motivations that exist only in their imagination. You're just angry at the world. No, you just stopped pretending the world is fine. You're pushing everyone away. No, you just stopped pulling everyone close at your own expense. You're being selfish. No, you just stopped setting yourself on fire to keep others warm. Every accusation is a confession. Every criticism is a mirror. Every attack is an admission of their own pain. Because here's what's really happening. Your authenticity is triggering their shadow. All the parts of themselves they've disowned, rejected, buried. You're bringing them to the surface just by existing. The confident way you now move through the world reminds them of the confidence they surrendered. The boundaries you now maintain remind them of all the times they betrayed themselves. The truth you now speak reminds them of all the lies they still tell. You're not trying to trigger anyone. You're not walking around psychoanalyzing people or pointing out their masks. You're just living. But when you live authentically in a world of performers, your very existence becomes a confrontation. And rather than thank you for the wake-up call, they'll crucify you for disturbing their sleep. This is the projection game. And once you understand it, you'll never take their reactions personally again, because it was never about you. It was always about what you represent, the possibility they're too afraid to embrace. Let me tell you what's actually happening beneath the surface. When someone encounters authentic presence, real, unfiltered, unperfumed truth, their psyche goes into threat mode, not physical threat, existential threat, because authenticity is contagious. When you're around someone who's genuinely themselves, your own false self starts to crack. Your carefully constructed persona begins to feel like a straitjacket. The gap between who you are and who you pretend to becomes painfully obvious. For most people, this creates unbearable anxiety, so their unconscious does what it always does with unbearable truths. It shoots the messenger. They'll find reasons to dismiss you. You're going through a phase. You're trying too hard. You've been brainwashed by self-help. You've lost touch with reality. Anything to avoid the real issue. You're showing them what they could be if they had the courage. Watch how they minimize your growth, how they try to pull you back into old patterns, how they remind you of who you used to be. Remember when you never used to be like this. I miss the old you. What they're really saying is, I miss when you helped me maintain my illusions. I miss when your mask validated my mask. I miss when we were both safely unconscious together. They're not trying to help you. They're trying to help themselves. Because if they can get you to put your mask back on, they can keep wearing theirs. This isn't conscious manipulation. It's unconscious desperation. The desperation of someone who built their entire life on a foundation of pretense. Watching someone else walk on solid ground. They need you to be fake because your reality threatens their entire world. But here's what's even more fascinating. Often the people who react most strongly are the ones closest to their own awakening, the ones whose masks are already cracking, the ones who've been feeling the call to authenticity but have been too afraid to answer it. Your presence accelerates their internal conflict. Part of them wants to join you, part of them wants to destroy you, part of them recognizes truth, part of them fears it more than death, so they lash out, not because they hate you, but because you're forcing a choice they're not ready to make. Stay asleep or wake up. And waking up means admitting they've been asleep. It means acknowledging years, sometimes decades of living as someone they're not. It means facing the grief of unlived life, unexpressed truth, unrealized potential. Who wants to face that? Who wants to admit they've been sleepwalking through their own existence? Much easier to make you the problem, much easier to pathologize your awakening than to begin their own. So they'll create elaborate justifications for why your authenticity is actually dysfunction. They'll gather allies who share their resistance. They'll build a case against your truth that sounds reasonable to anyone who's also avoiding their own. And for a moment, you might even believe them, because when everyone around you is saying you're wrong, it's hard to trust your own experience. When the entire world is wearing masks, the naked face looks like madness. But remember this, the truth doesn't need a consensus. Reality doesn't require a vote. Your authenticity isn't subject to their approval. Their reaction is just fear dressed up as concern. Their resistance is just pain, disguised as judgment. And their desperate attempts to pull you back into unconsciousness, that's just proof that your light is working. And now we arrive at the part no one talks about: the price you pay for waking up. You'll lose people, not because you pushed them away, but because proximity to truth requires a tolerance most people haven't developed. It's like trying to stare at the sun. They'll look away, and eventually they'll stay away. Your conversations will change. Small talk becomes impossible when you've touched depth. Surface relationships feel like starvation when you've tasted real connection. You can't go back to discussing the weather when you've discussed the soul. You'll find yourself alone more often, not because you're antisocial, but because you can no longer socialize with masks. You'd rather have solitude than false company. You'd rather have silence than scripted conversation. This is the valley of authenticity, the place where the old connections have died, but the new ones haven't been born yet, where you're too real for your old world, but haven't found your new tribe. And in this valley, you'll face the greatest temptation of all, to put the mask back on, to go back to sleep, to trade your hard-won truth for the comfort of belonging. Because humans are social creatures, we're wired for connection, and the pain of isolation can make even the most committed person question their path. Maybe I was better off before. Maybe ignorance really is bliss. Maybe I should just pretend. Maybe they're right about me. But you can't, not really. Because once you've seen the strings, you can't believe in the puppet show. Once you've tasted reality, everything else tastes like cardboard. You're ruined for superficiality. And that's both your curse and your liberation. The loneliness isn't just social, it's existential. You're living between worlds now, too awake for the sleeping world, but still learning how to navigate wakefulness, too real for pretense, but still discovering what reality means. Some days, the isolation will feel unbearable. You'll scroll through your phone seeing all the connections you used to have, all the gatherings you're no longer invited to, all the relationships that have quietly dissolved. You'll wonder if it was worth it, if truth is worth this price, if authenticity is worth this alienation. And in those moments, you'll be tempted to perform again, just a little, just enough to fit in, just enough to feel less alone. But then you'll remember what performance cost you, the anxiety, the exhaustion, the slow death of living as someone you're not, the suffocation of swallowing your truth, day after day after day. And you'll realize that this loneliness, brutal as it is still better than the loneliness of being surrounded by people who don't see you. This isolation is still better than the isolation of living behind a mask, because at least now, when you're alone, you're with yourself, the real you, the one you abandoned for so long in pursuit of acceptance, and that self, that's the only companion you truly need, the only one who will be with you from first breath to last, the only one whose approval actually matters. The valley of authenticity is where you learn this, where you discover that being alone with truth is better than being together in lies, where you realize that one real connection, even if it's just with yourself, is worth more than 1,000 false ones. This is the trial by fire, the test of your commitment to truth, and if you can survive it, if you can resist the siren song of false belonging, something beautiful awaits on the other side. But let's go deeper. Let's talk about what they don't tell you in the self-help books. Authenticity has a shadow side. Sometimes what we call being real is just another mask, the mask of the truth teller, the awakened one, the person who's done the work. We can become addicted to our own authenticity, wielding it like a weapon, using our truth to cut others down. I'm just being honest becomes an excuse for cruelty. I don't do fake becomes a justification for judgment. I speak my truth becomes a way to avoid hearing others. I've done my shadow work becomes a badge of superiority. This is spiritual ego dressed up as authenticity, and it's just as much a performance as the masks you rejected. True authenticity includes the humility to know you're still becoming. It includes the compassion to understand why others still wear masks. It includes the wisdom to know when your truth serves and when it merely satisfies your need to be seen as authentic. Because here's the paradox. The moment you're proud of being real, you've stopped being real. The moment you use your authenticity as a way to feel superior, you've created a new mask, the mask of the authentic person. And this mask is even more dangerous because it's harder to see. It's reinforced by every spiritual book you read, every therapy session you attend, every moment of insight you have. You become the star of your own enlightenment story, performing awakeness for an audience of other seekers. The people who reject you, part of them might be sensing this. They might be picking up on the subtle performance within your non-performance, the ego hidden in your egolessness, the mask of having no mask. This is why the path of authenticity is so treacherous, because every step forward creates a new shadow. Every truth revealed creates a new place to hide. Every mask removed reveals another layer beneath. Real authenticity includes admitting this. It includes acknowledging that you're not done, that you're not fully awake, that you're still performing in ways you haven't recognized yet. It means catching yourself when you're using truth as a weapon, when you're wielding authenticity as armor, when you're hiding behind realness instead of living it. Ask yourself, am I being real, or am I performing realness? Am I speaking truth, or am I trying to hurt? Am I authentic, or am I attached to being seen as authentic? Am I awake, or am I dreaming I'm awake? The shadow of authenticity encompasses the aspects of yourself that you dismissed when you rejected insincerity. Perhaps you discarded healthy social interactions alongside superficial kindness. Perhaps you mistook essential diplomacy for deceit. Perhaps you forsook kindness in your quest for truth. Because truth devoid of love is merely brutality. Authenticity lacking compassion is simply narcissism. Realness without wisdom is yet another manifestation of unconsciousness. Those who cannot tolerate your authenticity, perhaps they are not entirely unaware. Perhaps some of them are perceiving the shadow within your light. Perhaps they are responding not to your truth, but to the subtle aggression in how you express it. This does not diminish your journey, rather it enriches it. True authenticity encompasses the humility to recognize where you are still performing, still projecting, and still utilizing truth as a shield against vulnerability. The pinnacle of authenticity is not merely proclaiming yourself as real, it is acknowledging that you are still in the process of becoming real. It is understanding that awakening is a journey, not a destination. It is recognizing that everyone, including yourself, is still navigating their path. So, how do you approach all of this? How do you maneuver through a world that punishes truth while professing to value it? First, recognize that their rejection serves as information. It reveals who is prepared for reality and who is not. It categorizes your relationships into those that can evolve with you and those that relied on your stagnation. This is not about being superior to anyone. It is about acknowledging resonance. Some individuals are ready for depth, while others are still learning to navigate. Neither stance is incorrect. However, attempting to engage in a profound conversation with someone who fears water benefits no one. Second, understand that their animosity is not truly animosity. It is fear. Fear of their own authenticity. Fear of what they have concealed. Fear of who they could become if they ceased pretending. When you grasp this, compassion becomes attainable, not the patronizing compassion of the spiritually enlightened, but the sincere compassion that arises from understanding. Third, use their projection as a mirror for your own shadow work. What triggers them about your authenticity? Where might you be unconsciously performing your truth, rather than simply living it? Where might your realness be compensating for something still unhealed? Their rejection can become your teacher, if you're humble enough to learn from it, because sometimes their criticisms contain kernels of truth, not about your authenticity being wrong, but about how you're expressing it. Maybe you are being self-righteous. Maybe you are using truth as a shield. Maybe you are performing awakeness. Fourth, find your people. They exist. The ones who light up when you speak your truth. The ones who meet your depth with their own. The ones who celebrate your unmasking, because it gives them permission to unmask too. These connections will be fewer but infinitely richer. Quality over quantity, depth over breadth, truth over comfort. You'll recognize them immediately. Conversation flows without effort. Silence feels full, not empty. You can be yourself without explanation or apology. They see you really see you, and don't look away. But here's the key. Don't desperately seek these people. Don't perform authenticity, trying to attract them. Don't create a new mask of seeking authentic connection. Instead, focus on being real. Focus on living your truth. Focus on becoming who you are. The right people will find you. They always do, because authenticity recognizes authenticity across any distance. Fifth, practice unconditional self-acceptance. The world's rejection only hurts to the degree that you're rejecting yourself. Their judgment only lands where you're judging yourself. Their criticism only stings where you're criticizing yourself. The more you accept all parts of yourself, including the parts that are still performing, still seeking approval, still afraid, the less you'll need others' acceptance. This doesn't mean becoming hard or indifferent. It means becoming whole. It means loving yourself enough that others' love becomes a bonus, not a necessity. Finally, trust the process. Trust that every rejection is redirection. Trust that every lost connection makes space for a true one. Trust that the universe is conspiring to connect you with your real tribe. But first, it has to clear out everyone who is attracted to your mask. The alchemy of rejection transforms poison into medicine. It transforms others' fear into your freedom. It transforms their projection into your power. But only if you let it. Only if you stop trying to convince anyone of your worth. Only if you stop explaining yourself to people committed to misunderstanding you. And here's the final truth. the one that changes everything. The more genuinely you accept their rejection, the less they'll need to reject you, because rejection only sticks to the parts of you that are still seeking approval. When you truly deeply accept that not everyone will like the real you, when you're genuinely okay with that, you stop broadcasting the subtle need that triggers their resistance. It's like learning to walk through a world of mirrors without constantly checking your reflection. When you stop needing them to validate your authenticity, they stop needing to invalidate it. Some will still leave. Let them man. Your truth was never meant for everyone, but others, the ones who are ready, will be drawn to your freedom like moths to a flame. Not because you're trying to attract them, but because authenticity is the rarest currency in a world of performers, and those who stay, those who can stand in the fire of your truth without burning, those are your people, your tribe, your real connections. They won't be many, but they'll be everything. Here's what nobody tells you about being hated for your authenticity. It's a sign you're doing something right. In a world built on pretense, truth is heresy. In a culture of masks, the naked face is obscene. In a society of sleepwalkers, the awakened are disturbing. Your authenticity threatens an entire system built on mutual deception. Of course it's met with resistance. Of course it triggers projection. Of course it invites rejection. But that rejection is just the dying gasp of a world that's ending. The world where everyone pretends and no one is real. Your truth is helping birth a new world. One where people can finally breathe, finally be seen, finally live as themselves. So, let them hate you. Let them project. Let them reject. Let them misunderstand. Because their reaction to your truth was never about you. It was always about them. And your job isn't to make them comfortable with your authenticity. Your job is to be so rooted in your truth that their discomfort becomes their opportunity to either wake up or walk away. Both serve the highest good, because in the end, being hated for who you are is infinitely better than being loved for who you're not. And once you understand that, truly understand it, you're free, not free from rejection, but free from the fear of it. And that's when your real life begins, the one where you're not performing for anyone, not even yourself, the one where you simply are, and that's enough. That's everything.